Hi, and welcome to the CCDA podcast. My name is Darryl Answer. I am co-pastor of New Community Church in Kansas City, Missouri. And I have been a part of the CCDA family since 2011 when I went to the first immersion. Had the privilege of being a part of a leadership cohort, C5, the best cohort. And I also currently have the privilege of sitting on the board with my dear sister here, Eun Strawser. So we are grateful to be able to be in this space together. CCDA is passionate about seeing people and communities experience God's shalom. And that is a reason why I am a part of the CCDA family. I fully believe in the mission and work of CCDA. And one way that we're doing that is through our Flourishing Congregations Initiatives, or FCI. And this is our comprehensive 4-year program designed to empower church leaders to help their congregations deepen their community engagement, enhance their ministries, and contribute to the flourishing of their neighborhoods. So today, we have a representative from Ma Ke Alo joining us to share about what they're doing in their church and community and how they are seeing God move. And like I said, I am joined by my dear sister, my friend, Dr. Eun Strawser. Thank you so much for being here, Eun.
This is like the best timing for this because our coach, Reverend Darryl Answer, and I'm sorry for everybody who's watching and listening, we do reside in Hawaii. So we just had the privilege of having Darryl, our coach, come and spend a week with us. So I hope we get to talk about that too. And it was the best thing ever.
It absolutely was. And we definitely will be talking about it.
Awesome.
All right. And so to begin, how about you just introduce yourself and share a little bit about your church?
Yeah, Ma Ke Alo, we are in our 7th year as a church plant. And I have personally been around CCDA for about 5 years. Like Darryl said, I'm also on the board with him, which is like my favorite board to be a part of. But really, I feel like out of all the national platforms, associations, affiliations, denominations, particularly in this time when like a lot of disaffiliated churches and organizations and communities are coming out from the pandemic, this is probably the one spot that our church knew more than any other denomination or association or affiliation. This is where we want to land because it was the first time when I brought my leaders to a conference, they're just like, wait a second. Wait, people do church like this? Like we just thought we were like the weirdos, trying to think about, I'm like, apparently a lot of people think about a church like this or think about a future of the church, big C-wide, looking and doing and behaving. Like my leaders cried the first time, and so this is the one and only conference every year we bring our leaders to. So we're incredibly grateful that CCDA exists, all the work and decades of work that a lot of the pioneering leaders have done. So, I mean, we cry so much. We just cry all the time whenever we get a chance to be with CCDA.
Yeah, thank you so much. So speaking of your church and you bringing your folks out to CCDA, when you think about your context, like what's one thing people should know about your church?
Yeah, we... paradise living. We also do still suffer for the gospel. So don't you think that it's otherwise? I think that it really has been around. We think that we're such a small niche of a community that we think about race dynamics differently here in Hawaii than we do on mainland U.S. We think about, because of indigenous Hawaiian culture, we think about redistribution or even distribution of land differently. There's a cultural part of reconciliation. It's all like embedded in those kinds of things. But I think that the biggest thing was that we love that there are terms around a universal terms around things that I feel like a lot is so meaningful to indigenous Hawaiian culture that it's the first time that it's not churchy or like a church or even white evangelical tradition feels threatening. Like one of the biggest hurdles about planting or doing church at all in Hawaii is that a lot of indigenous Hawaiians have to ask the question, do I give up my identity as being Hawaiian in exchange for being Christian? Or am I Christian first? Am I Hawaiian first? Like, so a lot of the conversation around, you don't have to actually, no, it's not, God's not asking you to like give up your identity or your cultural identity. But a lot of times that kind of language from a broader church conversation, it feels like it misses out on those kinds of things. So I think a lot of the CCDA philosophies make sense. It already makes sense culturally for people here. So that actually has been like the biggest gift.
That's great. And so I was able to visit your community literally like 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, you know, and one of the places that you encouraged me to go to was the palace. And so I love that you're bringing up some of the history of your community and your people in Hawaii and the indigenous people, because Hawaii has faced the effects of some pretty significant injustices. And I think it's really important for us in CCDA to hear that, because usually what we hear of Hawaii is the beaches, the vacations, all of these things that people, they can miss, like the underlying story, the narrative of it being an occupied territory, and so, yeah, I'm grateful for that, because it's really important for us in the CCDA community to understand, like, it's not just what's happening on the mainland, but like your community helps us just a little bit see beyond our local neighborhoods. Like, okay, across an ocean, these things are also taking place.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably one of the things that, I think you and I both have chatted about this, but that we would hope for uh, any folks participating in FCI is that it isn't just though, like, because of the CCDA philosophy, it isn't just about what's the work that coaches need to do just for this one particular church community, and just working on the church's culture in that one specific community, and then flourishing will happen, right? If we're going to be talking about flourishing, then it has to include the community. It has to include the history and traditions of that local place. And I think it exposes the fact, if like church leaders actually know their place or not. I am not from Hawaii. Well, I look brown, but I'm not. I'm like from West Philadelphia. As soon as I open up my big fat mouth, everybody knows I'm from the East Coast when I'm here in Hawaii. So that part about, I had to learn very quickly that this isn't just happy-go-lucky aloha culture in Hawaii, that there's a deep, deep sense of injustice that people may politely not want to bring up. Because in some places it feels like we're still in an occupied, literal occupied land. But what do people do with that? What do Jesus followers do with that? Knowing its history, like, where is resistance? Where are the reconciliation parts? How does empowerment work? Like, all those kinds of things. People are already thinking about that, wrestling with that. So, yeah, it's important. The local place is important.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, sorry, and I wasn't able to pick up the last parts that you said, but how about, if you don't mind, just sharing a little bit, like, what led you and your team to consider being a part of the Flourishing Congregations Initiative?
Yeah, one of the biggest things is our church partners with a church 5,000 miles away in Virginia. And we really, both of our churches and church communities and leadership, we've done some work together and things, but we were beginning to already ask the questions, like the next step of, once we nailed down the cultural pieces to both of our communities, leadership's equipped, like, what are they equipped to do? And a lot of the resounding answer was, how does the church get further connected to the community that the church resides in? So if that was a question, we knew that CCDA is probably one of the best places to journey with other like-minded communities. CCD practitioners in particular are the best people to learn about what is happening in our local place, in our communities, and all different aspects of it, whether it's advocacy or working with actual neighbors, those kinds of things. So I think that FCI was a really, really great opportunity for both of our churches to learn together, even though we're in very, very different parts of the entire country.
Let's go back to me being present with your community and being with your leaders, and them experiencing CCDA at the conference. Why don't we spend some time just talking about how they're taking some of those principles of CCDA and then learning how to interpret and live those out and even invite others into. That's one of the things I really appreciate about your ministry is that you go at the pace of your community. I just noticed that really quickly, that there's no rush. You go at the pace of your community, of your leaders, and you walk alongside them. So I'm just curious what that has looked like over the last several years as people have engaged in CCDA, have, moved from like, oh wow, there are people out here like us, like we're not crazy, to then like on the ground. So like, would love to hear what that's looked like for you all.
Yeah, like if you're anybody who's a leader, they understand this thing. It does not matter how many times we feel like a broken record and we just say the things that we are like, this is amazing. So like talk about this empowerment, redistribution, all this stuff. We can do this, right? And then like, lo and behold, a brand new person comes from a totally different context with totally different stories, but stories that is meaningful to them. It's relatable, all those kinds of things. When that happens, it feels like magic. It feels like finally people, my leaders are understanding it. So it did not matter how many times a person has gone to a conference. Like the conference is awesome. Don't get me wrong. Everybody go register for a conference in Grand
Right.
Rapids, like pronto. But I think that the beauty about FCI is because the coaches get to do these on-site visits. Like my leaders got to have one-on-one conversations with Darryl. They got to ask and pick his brain about what did it practically look like. They heard another community story about pacing and timing, so they can't accuse me of being either too
Mm,
fast or too slow, right? They heard stories of other leaders struggling with X, Y, and Z in a particular neighborhood. So all those kinds of conversations were probably the most meaningful.
yeah.
I'll share a story about Kelsey Darryl because I think that like probably landed the most for our community. So Ma Ke Alo, we started out with one neighborhood-based community. We've multiplied to 12 different ones across Oahu, which is one of the main islands in Hawaii. And so Darryl got to go visit some of the neighborhoods and really work with the bulk of our leaders in individual sessions, conversation over a meal, of course, over good Hawaiian food, of course.
Yes, absolutely.
But but one of the leaders that Darryl got to sit down with was one of our probably top leaders who has expanded her community. She's the one who does a lot of work with kupuna or seniors in Hawaii. They're all low income residents, and a lot of the work was around meeting needs. But it wasn't until, trust me, I had many conversations with her leadership and her communities around, oh, how can we join alongside the community members, all these things. But it wasn't until Darryl was very clearly sharing with her, like, have you ever wondered what the people that you feel like you want to meet their needs, what they can also contribute in return, because without them doing that, they'll never enjoy what it means to be a part of the community. So even just taking the value point of listening to the community, but he rewrapped it, just a little bit differently, and knew that my leader really valued needs and needs-based ministries, right? But he rewrapped it so that it's like, actually, that one of the fruit of listening to the community is that you realize that everyone has something to offer. And that's a vital part of being a part of the community that you want to set out and establish for everybody to flourish under. So it was such a benefit, Darryl, when you came, and like that's still sticking with that whole community.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think I'm just reflecting on this whole FCI process, and the gift of this process is that we're actually, as coaches, are able to spend time like in community. I don't know if there would be this much fruit if this would have just taken place on a Zoom call. But even with the leader that you're speaking of, on meeting her in her neighborhood at her coffee shop, like literally walking into the coffee shop, and people know her name. Like, this is her community. So I got to spend time as the coach, as the guest. And so I spent time in the neighborhood, walking the neighborhood, taking pictures of artwork, eating the food, all the different things, like as the guest, and then being able to just share some stories. Like, I think that's what's so powerful about this whole process. And I'm excited to see over the next few years the ripple effects of these conversations and this work, and just how we continue to kind of till the soil of our communities. Because as coaches, we're learning how to be guests. Local leaders are learning to, they continue to practice hospitality, and just learning how to see their community through fresh eyes, which has really been a gift. So, yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, because I had an amazing time with your team, but I also saw those moments where it was like, oh, I've never thought about that. Or unsaid that, but I forgot. you know? It's like,
Oh,
oh, yeah.
please. Every single one of my leaders wanted us to just swap places. Send me back to Kansas City, you know.
It gets cold here. It gets real cold here. You don't want that. So yeah, no, I think it's a really amazing opportunity for us to, and again, for me to be in your communities, like like you did an incredible job, you and Pastor Melly, getting me the itinerary, before I got there, so I knew where I needed to be at what time. Leaders were waiting for me, with food and lots of coffee, so it was just a great time. Just a great time. And then also, as I mentioned, learning the history of the place. Hawaii isn't just beautiful beaches, right, and resorts. There is a deep, deep history of injustice. So being able to, yeah, just be there with local people and not there as a tourist was just a gift.
Darryl, I didn't tell you this part, but I'll sing
Yeah.
your praises like I always like to do. But one of our leaders, he's a young man. He's an Indigenous Hawaiian leader. His name is Haku, and he got to spend. He does a lot of youth work, youth ministries, and he got to spend some one-on-one time with Darryl. And he came away from it. He said that I feel like Pastor Darryl is one of the people that I know I could count on for life. he's like
Mm.
he's like, and it's not just you. There are
Wow.
people, oh
Wow.
man, because he cried, that like I know I can count on him for life. And so it's like, even
Mm.
even I feel like that kind of work makes it so that my leaders aren't a part of the CCDA family by proxy to me. This kind of leadership work makes my leaders feel like they're actually a part of this. This isn't just something one leader or a main leader is doing. So that was actually very,
Yeah.
I just wept in a corner after that.
That's amazing.
And so thankful,
Yeah.
for Darryl.
Yeah. 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 I've actually thought about him often since I've been back. So yeah, looking forward to reconnecting. And speaking of your community and injustices, national news a few years ago, the Lāhainā fires. What's unfortunate is some people take advantage of crises, and there are others who came to the aid of their neighbors. But just how is your community doing? If I remember correctly, you all were engaged in trying to support some underground locals who are like proximate to those fires. But just wanted to check in, like, how's that going?
Yeah. And just, I think that this is probably like to the recording of our conversation here, thinking about Texas now,
Yes.
and all the devastation and work that they're
Yes.
facing there. It wasn't too long ago with the LA fires. And I think
Absolutely.
that's the reality of like how quickly we forget. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like that. That's why, like, national or global news, like, we'll just forget about it so quickly. But it isn't because it's like a mean thing or an evil thing to do. I think that this is the reason why the church exists, to be local and in the neighborhood, and you know your neighbors, and you know, like, we're the people who should care deeply about our local places, right? And so, uh, yeah, it's like hearing about all of these devastations, like, you know, we our hearts really are so pulled, knowing that there are other folks across the whole planet, right, suffering in their local place. But this is part of, I think, the challenge and the call for not just community development leaders, right? We often think that in times of this kind of natural disasters, or these kinds of travesties in the world, that it's only community development workers who should be responding, the
Mm,
nonprofit workers or charity programs who should be responding. But if the local church is not equipped to know how to address this immediately, right, the world will not stay to watch. The funding and the support and all those things will go away really quickly. Statistically, it takes about a week. You have 7 days until the next news hits, right? And so this is a few years past now in the Lahaina fires, and it's only now that rebuilding has started. Imagine if you lost your home, if you lost all your possessions, and most of the parts of Lahaina, the deepest sadness is that the land was one of the few places in the state of Hawaii where it is still indigenous Hawaiian owned land. So these are like generations after generations of family land that got burned down. And so, I mean, it's years past, and yet it's only now that a lot of these families were able to come back to their land, even look at what it looks like. Like, a lot of folks said that it felt like it was war torn when they first went back to sea, because everything was still ashen. And, you know, Hawaii being Hawaii, we look for things that are going to grow, right? We come from volcanoes, and so we always look for life that's going to seep through, right? And so people looking for that, people looking for any remnants of family treasures, artifacts around their generations, you know, all those things. And so that part has passed. It's now they were beginning to have some sort of makeshift temporary housing that can be on location. So our church has been partnering with a local farm that we've been doing lots of work with, that Pastor Darryl is going to come to the next time he comes to visit. And so it's solar generated. The most meaningful work that we learned from the Lāhainā fires is that people do not want outside help, because people don't want outsiders to come to their land. And so the big quick shift work was really around how do we get direct funding to these communities, so that people aren't going to be ousted because maybe they're undocumented back then. And so people are afraid, right? Maybe that it's untrustworthy because we are coming from a very recent history of being overthrown, right? If that's the culture and history of a place, then you don't want to all of a sudden think that you're going to be the knight in shining armor coming in and making everything. No, that is the absolutely the wrong way of presenting Jesus, right? Jesus has to look like an indigenous Hawaiian person coming in and staying with the families, finding them because they already know, to talk to auntie so and so to know where baby so and so is for the diaper care and all that stuff. So yeah, a lot of the work is just supporting the families. We have about 7 folks that we are supporting, and so it's just their own direct needs, and hearing their stories around rebuilding. So it's still years in the making. Like, probably like a month ago was when the last applications for rebuilding funds were being released. So
mm.
it's a long time.
Yeah, yeah, really slow. It just reminds you, like in the community development world, how many years. Yeah, so the news may stop reporting within 7 days, but to actually rebuild is years. you know. So yeah, I appreciate that, and the word that comes to mind for me as I listen to how you and your community shows up is incarnation. So, and that's a big part of who we are as CCDA. Um, incarnating ourselves, coming alongside community, staying in a place long enough where we no longer are the outsider, but we link arms and support those who are like indigenous to those communities. So I think that's really important. And yeah, I'm just grateful again for your witness in your place. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm curious, as you think about other congregations that may be a part of this journey, what words of encouragement do you have for them? Others who may be in the FCI are hearing about this, may not be in the FCI, but also, yeah, just wanting to go deeper into their incarnational journeys. Like, do you have any words of encouragement to them?
Yeah, I think that if you have not done your coach's site visit yet, you all in the FCI world,
That's right.
if you haven't yet, if you didn't include some sort of neighborhood tour for the coach to actually get to see and sense and taste and smell and see everything around your neighborhood, like what an opportunity for you to fall in love again with the work that God has called you to, right? Like if you only just love your church, you can plant anywhere, right? Go be a part of a community just for the community's sake. But if I think church leaders, pastors, elders, deacons, if we don't love our neighborhood, we don't love the community that God put, it does not mean we have to love it in totality. But if we don't love the people there, name those people, think of those people as we're doing this kind of flourishing work. Basically, we're saying that our neighbors and our community are not included in God's flourishing. And I just don't think that's how the kingdom of God operates. And so I just feel like that incarnational work is not just about, like you were saying, Darryl, like meeting people's needs. It really is really saying and inviting and including the entire community into God's flourishing, right?
Yeah,
That's the picture of the kingdom of God, right? It doesn't just end with the church.
yeah, that's beautiful. I love that invitation. That's such a pastoral word on what needs to take place in order for us to fall in love with our communities again. Because it's hard out here. It's hard out here. We're tired, you know. But again, if we're a people of incarnation, the driving force behind that is our love. It should be. Not a sense of obligation, not a sense of guilt, not a sense of seeking accolades or platform, but it's Christ's love. So I really appreciate that invitation to just ask ourselves again, like, what needs to happen in order for us to fall in love with our place, with our community? To move outside the walls of our buildings, if we have buildings. Ma Ke Alo and new community in Kansas City, we don't have buildings, we got homes. But even still, that same mindset can set in. So that's such a great reminder to us. Oh, and do you have any other words for any of our any folks who may be listening in the CCDA world as it relates to Christian community development, flourishing congregations?
Yeah, I think that maybe if that's part of like the conversations I think in CCDA that we've been having conversations around, right? Is there really that disparity between churches who are trying to do charity or community development work and then nonprofits, Christian community developers, practitioners, right? Is there really that much of a disparity? I think we do know that there is a learning that church-based leaders have to engage with, and it isn't just learning a bunch of new things or learning or just like reading about CCDA philosophy. I think the biggest a push that we probably can make is get to know the CCD practitioners who live in the same city as you. If you really want to know what's the best place to have like missional clarity, missional impulse, like where is God already at work in your city? Don't just learn about it or read some philosophy and think you're going to magically understand what's happening. No, actually, there are people who are working and living and loving the city just as much as you do. Go learn from them. You may be surprised because most of these leaders are Black and brown female leaders, but man, if we listened to these leaders,
Yes.
If we really, really sat under their leadership, under their
Mm,
experience, and most of these people have been doing this for decades, probably maybe
mm,
longer than you've been pastoring a church, man, your church would be more poised to know how to be guests of the city, guests of other parts of your neighborhood and things. So I think that's probably if you're a church-based leader, you're a pastor, elder, or deacon in your church, and you're trying to think through how to do this well, don't just read, don't just do virtual calls. Like, that's not where the learning is going to happen. Go find where this is happening live in your city. And if you don't know, this is the biggest plug for coming to the CCDA National
that's right.
Conference in Grand Rapids, because it's not just a bunch of like a big room platform learning or seeing something inspirational. There's all those kinds of things there too. But the breakout sessions and things are, you actually have there, the one of the biggest parts is networking sessions. Go to those places, meet the people who are right down the street from you, and you never knew the work that they were doing, right? I bet the people that we consider heroes in the church wouldn't just include pastors, right? It would actually include these people who have given their lives over for their neighbors and probably have been more incarnational than the church has been in the recent times. So that's my biggest push.
That's so good.
Yay, CCD practitioners, learn
Right.
from them.
That's so good. That's so good. And also a plug for your local network. If you're not connected to one, then that's definitely a great place to get plugged in. And you may not have one in your city, but you can talk to the folks at CCDA and help get one started. But I'm always amazed when I go to the local or to the national conference, and we do have like we do put the call out. If you're in the Kansas City area, there's always way more people than I expected to be in the room. Like, oh, I had no idea you were in the area. So again, just an amazing plug for that local network. Well, Un, thank you so much for taking the time. This has been a great conversation. Thank you for listening to the CCDA podcast, and thank you for joining us. If you want to learn more about CCDA or connect with Ma Ke Alo, check out the show notes of this episode. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. This episode is produced by Sarah Kalin in association with Christina Ford. We'll be back soon with another episode featuring CCD practitioners who are committed to seeing people and communities experience God's shalom. We'll see you soon.